Oh, did everybody turn their microphones on? I'm on. I think we're okay. Okay. Okay, then do we have any changes and or additions to the agenda?
No, not tonight.
Excellent. Up next is approval of the regular meeting agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda?
I move to approve regular meeting agenda.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. No opposed. The motion passes. Up next, we have presentations with Lori Williams. Okay, and Heidi. I'm excited for this. Gardeners.
We need an action on the personnel out of endorsement. This is Board of please.
Oh.
Does that not, because the consent agenda was approved and that item is on the consent agenda, then we should be fine. But it has been approved as the consent agenda
Yes.
with the other personnel.
Okay. That was fine. Thank you.
No worries.
Is this on?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Lori Williams. Heidi Hagan's the elementary STEM teacher who brings out 500 students to the garden a week on a regular basis. And we're here because we care about creating a thriving, sustainable garden. My advances. Cool. How do we advance this? Right click. Here we go. It's important to remember that since time immemorial, Native Americans have been caretakers of this land where we are right now. And they're the first caretakers of our nature and our gardens. And a pioneer, we honor the Squaxin Island tribe. So tonight, we'll cover information about school gardens, some special programs here, challenges, and decisions for the board, the administration, the community on the direction of the garden and support, and how to strengthen the programs for sustainability. So there are many types of gardens. Some school districts might take a class out to a local farm once every few years. Some have foundations that raise money to run the garden, pay their staff, and the foundations that I have talked with around the nation, they usually work with classes maybe twice a year. So it's not a lot of student contact. Then there are school district run programs that's like Pioneer. Many of them have the teachers plant some seeds in the spring, and then over the summer, the garden dies, and so it's mostly a spring event. We are trying to create a model to have a thriving school garden year-round, and to integrate it into the cafeteria. So as we present today for the school board, we ask, and the community, we ask that you look at this one model and vision because it's up to the board to create the vision, policy, and how to support this model, or decide that maybe you want to go in a different direction. So just as a reminder, Pioneer did have a garden back in 2006. It was built by the district, Kiwanis, the community, but it was little utilized, and it became dilapidated. So in 2019, the Hurston Island Garden Club began a restoration project with the community and Kiwanis. But a community member kept asking me, we built the district a garden a long time ago, but it wasn't used, so why should they get another garden? And that question kept weighing on me. So I started to do a deep dive into research, and I found that a garden can connect just about everything and every subject, every grade in natural ways. Would you have a technology program without laptops? No. And a garden is a hands-on living laboratory so students can experience nature firsthand, and the benefits range from increased academic performance, wellness, to helping students become caretakers. And then it also is the teacher. It provides real life learning connections. It connects the community around the garden, and it also is tied to many career pathways. So who am I and why am I speaking? I'm Lori Williams. I'm a K-12 teacher, administrative experience in curriculum and staff development, staff training. And my whole focus was, if you have a garden, it has to be for student learning and wellness. We can't waste precious learning time. So I became a certified school garden educator. I became a master gardener and a sport gardening instructor. Since then, I've been a national speaker at a national school educator garden conference and the national ASCB conference. Now I'm transitioning the garden from volunteer, created and led, to the school. And got an amazing staff here, but there is a lot of support that still needs to be built in. So I visited many gardens. I interviewed a lot of school garden educators in the US and internationally, and I found out that most school gardens fail to thrive. So my goal was, how can we create a quality but sustainable school garden? So going back to 2019, COVID hit, no students. So the garden club was able to restore the hoop house, build some raised beds. There's my hubby. A handful of 60, 70-year-olds could get a little bit done over a long period of time. But when the students returned, now we're able to kick into high gear. So I took off my garden club hat and put on my educator hat to figure out how 700 students can be engaged in this garden. And so for the first 2 years, I've had PE students come out twice a year. So now you've got 700 kids building the garden, doing the physical work. So no math or reading time is lost. It has to be a match. Gardening is great physical exercise. The students shoveled lots of wood chips, created pathways, shoveled tons of soil to make new beds, made compost bins. And the PE students did the physical work so that the teachers could focus on student learning. So this is one of Heidi's experiments with elementary STEM. And it was, what do potatoes grow better in soil or in straw? A middle school STEM, working with building mason bee houses and taking data on their egg laying. Miss Coral in middle school, she created an elective class, gardening, cooking. A garden provides lots of academic opportunities, lots of math opportunities, measurement, weighing, pH levels, exploring pumpkins, provides lots of math. And they use all their senses to explore the shapes, textures. How do I keep this from progressing on its own? I'll keep going, but it's not intuitive. We can do those raised beds in about 5 minutes. The trick is, how do you take 500 kids to do the garden? And it's inefficiency by design. And this is what being a garden educator is how do you make this meaningful for students? They practice their alphanumeric coordinates because we gridded the garden raised beds in square foot sections. That's good social studies. They all planted seeds. They watered the seeds. And the raised beds are planted. They're sowed for your cool season crops. Later in the spring, it's growing. And then in the fall, what a plentiful harvest. The garden uses Native American organic practices so students learn about biodiversity, intercropping, and using the best regenerative practices for plant health, our health, and the earth's health. Students sift compost. And they use compost to feed the beds. Instructional goal. 100% of students actively engaged in hands-on meaningful learning 100% of the time. And those kids are very active out there. But it also helps other academic areas. STEM is STEAM, art, teaching kids how to see and observe, which is fundamental for just about everything. So here's a first grade drawing. They observed strawberry, and look at this first grader with reversals and all. Before, most kids' drawings in elementary were quite small, but as they learn to observe, their quality and creativity increase. But it's not just art, math, science. They start getting engaged with lots of fiction, nonfiction books, because they have that curiosity now. And then you have books for every level. Vocabulary increases. So instead of kids saying this smells good, it's aromatic, fragrant, earthy, stronger words for colors. So when they do their writing, their songs, their poetry, now they have stronger writing. Science journaling combines your science thinking skills, writing, drawing, art, observation. So powerful. And then the younger kids write the thank you letters to our community donors and show their appreciation and connect to the community. Weed pulling, it can be academic. Weeds hog nutrients in water. So of course they need to get rid of some, but it's more than that. The roots grow deep. And if they don't get the whole roots, the weed's gonna grow. So when teachers now have kids who are arguing, the teacher can say, let's get to the root of the problem. Now it takes on more meaning. A lot of social emotional connections, teamworking in just about every aspect of the garden. The middle school students helped with the stewardship of our ecosystems. I take out the middle school students and we use weed pullers and they pull the Scotch broom. One Scotch broom plant can produce 10,000 seeds a year, and they'll be in the ground for 50 to 80 years. It's going to be continual. And this is something the middle school has continued with the conservation district now, helping to clear the property of this invasive weed. The Mason Conservation District led and supplied native plants for the middle school and the elementary school. Sorry.
Our students give back to the community. With hundreds of students planting seeds, they grow a lot of plants. So the district has started an annual plant giving and gratitude. The free student-grown plants help families to start home gardens, reduce food insecurity among our families, and provide K-8 community service, a personal passion of mine. Students pot up tomatoes, peppers, basil, squash, cucumbers, and flowers. We germinate plants in not only the STEM classroom, but other third grade classrooms. We raised over 1,500 plants for our plant giveaway to families last May.
Healthy eating. As we learn about the science of growing, the quality of our garden grows, but so does the student health. We plant a rainbow of colors because the phytonutrients and antioxidants in the plants give them their colors, and they're filled with vitamins, minerals, proteins, and the kids eat a rainbow. So you eat a green bean, it helps my bones and teeth. I eat a red raspberry, healthy heart. But how do these nutrients get into the plants? It's all about the soil, your earth science, life sciences, earthworms. For the little kids, they need soil to make plant food. Older students, earthworms have billions of bacteria in their guts that break down the organic matter into the nutrients that the plants can use. So hooray for worm poop. And the middle school students, as you start learning about the periodic table, our commercial fertilizers are mostly nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But if the plants need to be healthy, they need more of the periodic table. So the periodic table comes alive. And the more they have, plants have, the healthier they are and the healthier we are. But why provide our students with quality, nutrient-rich foods? Today, our produce is less nutrient than in the 1950s because of tilling, the use of chemicals. And at Pioneer, about 65% of our students are from lower income families. There's a lot of food insecurity, and not just among our students, among our staff also. Research shows a combination of food insecurity and poor nutrition negatively impacts a student's ability to focus, their behavior, their stress levels, their academics, their brain development, social skills, and their wellness. School attendance is greatly affected, as well as a lifetime of potential illness. So these two heads of lettuce look about the same, but look at this first one. Might have been sprayed with pesticides, herbicides. Maybe it was irrigated from a trench near a cattle ranch, and oops, there's some E. coli in there, and we have to have a recall. Synthetic fertilizers, less nutrients. Does that sound appetizing to serve your children? This one, organically grown in the school garden or from local farms, full of vitamins, minerals, nutrient rich, not sprayed with chemicals. Here's some examples of healthy eating at Pioneer. So if they pick and eat, that's called one bite tasting. And they also practice polite eating and what to do if they don't care for something. Oh, I'll put it in the compost. Pick a piece of basil, which deters tomato pests. Pick a cherry tomato, pop it in your mouth. A pizza explosion. Miss Coral is teaching her middle school students how to harvest the greens. And off they go to harvest for her class salad. On another day, they're picking their vegetables and making a soup in their elective class. It's a great way to also tie in cultural foods and customs.
So currently, our school district has an USDA Farm to School grant, and it's serving fresh, nutrient-rich foods from local growers. Sometimes the only fresh produce students eat is in the school lunch, and sometimes school lunch is the only meal students eat that day. Elementary students raise and harvest an abundance of produce to add to the farm to school cafeteria produce. They're so happy here. You can see this was our first harvest. Lots of tomatoes. Here's the first harvest of this school year. Students and volunteers weigh and record the harvests. This
Can I
one.
stop? Yeah, because I think we have our volunteer harvesters here.
Yay. So this one is about 70 pounds of produce that was harvested. Produce is received by the cafeteria. The kids and I take so much pride in knowing that they're eating what they have grown. We have to raise all the funds for our garden materials. Student-grown produce has the potential for future garden funding. We're fortunate to have whole kitchens so we can prepare fresh meals. Because of a Farm to School grant, our food service staff receive training from a USDA chef in scratch cooking. Another added plus, under this grant, our garden can get paid for the produce that it provides to the cafeteria. Lori and I met last week with professionals from the USDA Farm to School grant, SNAP Ed, and the OSPI's Child Nutrition and Program Specialist. They walked us through some of the steps for the garden to get paid. We'll go into each one. First, a requirement for the grant is to have a wellness policy statement to allow farm to school and garden produce in meals. This is an action item for the board. For example, Pioneer School District will connect students with local food systems to provide nutrient-rich, fresh foods for taste testing and meals promoting health, wellness, academic performance, and environmental sustainability. Step 2, create an interagency agreement between finance and food services so Pioneer can purchase garden produce, again, harvested by students. And administrators need to determine the pricing of garden produce. The USDA Regional Farm to School Coordinator will work with the finance and food service to get this done.
And she's meeting with them tomorrow.
Step 3, funds from district purchased school garden produce can go into a line item for garden, and having budget clarity on what this line item is used for is important. Currently, funds for materials are raised through community donations and grants. Using the USDA Farm to School grant to pay for garden produce could be a major funding source and provide real project-based math problem solving for students. Step 4, we need health department approval for garden to cafeteria meals. Lori created a safety handbook and submitted it to the health department for a few years ago. They said they'll inspect the garden when they inspect the kitchens. The USDA Regional Coordinator will work with food services and the health department for this approval. Steps 5 and 6 are the training of staff on the using the safety protocol, the harvesting protocol, to reduce the risk of any foodborne illness. And step 7 is to involve PTO and community volunteers, because quite frankly, I am one person and I can't do it myself. Therefore, I am asking for volunteers.
So I was called today by the regional coordinator of the Farm to School. She said she's meeting with finance and the cafeteria tomorrow, and she just wanted clarity. Have they already been trained in the safety toolkit protocol? Does the school have a certain place where they're keeping the record keeping? Because we write down, because I wrote down the first couple of years, everything that went on the garden soil, where you got the soil from, BCP, Creative Organics, what kind of amendments we put down, so that the school has a record in case there is any foodborne illness. We want to make sure that we have reduced liability as much as possible. And she asked if the principals have been trained in this and all the administrators, because this has been volunteer created. Teachers are working from the ground up. She said this is now serious for the health department inspection to make sure now it's under the board's vision, and the administrators are taking a role, and then the teachers and volunteers support them. So she's saying this is a critical juncture on flipping it now. Another thing that the garden does is care for the garden in the summer. And there's so much produce. So there's a sharing summer abundance. And the garden committee would love for this to go to families since there's a lot of food insecurity here. The difficulty is it takes a lot of work to manage a garden and to share it. So this is an area that if this falls under the vision of the school board, then we need to support the staff because they've been working so hard during the year. Now they're volunteering and we need a good way to get more volunteers in the garden. So there's been a proposal to try to pay a couple of staff to lead this. Mr. Davis may be bringing you a proposal in the next months. And then it would be up to the administration and the board to decide, is this something you want? Or many schools, the garden just dies over the summer and they don't use it again till the next spring. Can the district maybe fund this? So it might be as little as 5,000 for a couple staff, or it might be more. And if the district can't fund this, we're asking organizations for donations. And if they don't cover it, we can try to do GoFundMe's or other things to raise the funds. But it'd be helpful to know how much can be covered by the district, or if we totally need to do this with outside funding, or if it's even important to do this in the summer. So school garden challenges. To keep a garden thriving, we're going to address some of the challenges and the obstacles. There are over 5,000 school gardens in the U.S., but many struggle to survive, and less than 10% of the gardens thrive. So the model that I had in mind when I started this addresses these kind of benefits and developing sustainability for student learning and wellness. And then it's up to the board administrators to determine, is this a type of model that you want to continue for the health and learning of students, or do you want to do something else entirely? And then that would give the teachers direction as well. The district has a strategic plan, and the one area is in gardens. Students have access to the garden for academics. They participate, they integrate all subjects. There's an academic success piece of the strategic plan, and it's a perfect match also because the garden uses the best instructional practices. It improves student attendance and reduces absences because kids are healthier and they're motivated to come to school. It's one little piece. Climate and culture. The garden takes a lot of community support and volunteer opportunities, and that's some of the areas of the strategic plan is to increase the volunteers, connections with the community, attendance at family events, volunteerism. It provides that piece of the strategic plan. So the board and the community who's here have a task, and that is to envision the educational program, set the policy of the course, even for the garden and nature, because you're going to be going into a high school, and this fits so well into a high school in a local rural area. And you work with the superintendent in setting the curriculum so he and the administrators and staff can carry it out. But the vision and the direction is in your hands. It's been so far the teachers who are trying to figure out, is this the way we're going? Has it been stamped by the board of directors? And they need direction as well. So here are factors increasing school garden success according to research. And I'll be going through all of these in just a bit, but administrative support is high on it, having a paid garden coordinator or educator, integration of all school subjects, funding, volunteers is so important, work parties, partner organizations, and an effective school garden team and training. So here's a model of a basic school garden. Teachers in the upper right corner are to focus on curriculum and student learning, but there are so many other things your physical spaces, healthy eating, the finance, technology, getting volunteers, setting your traditions and celebrations. And right now, it's a volunteer, and Heidi is doing a lot of these other areas outside of just the curriculum area. It's difficult for a teacher to sustain this. And what happens? Teacher burnout. And when that teacher leaves, the garden folds. That has been my research and my conversations. So in talking a lot with Mr. Davis, because we've been working on this model for the past couple of years, administrators form the foundation. It doesn't mean they have to do all of the work, but the director of facilities has the physical spaces and your staff and volunteers to do the day-to-day work. Healthy eating, your cafeteria, your food services, finance, etc. So if the administrators share that sweat equity and provide the foundation, that's going to be so helpful. So Heidi's not having to figure all of this out and get all of it done when she should be focusing on the curriculum aspect. Last year, there was a paid garden coordinator, a paraprofessional in the garden because of the budget cuts. And she worked with Heidi to bring out 500 kids a week and help with organizational details. Heidi cannot take 500 kids a week into the garden, even a class at a time. There's too much going on. And this year, because of garden cuts, we don't have this position. It's been reduced from 40 hours a week to 1 hour. So this is a piece that if you don't have the funding, it means we have to increase the volunteers. And right now, there's not a system organized for that. So that's one area that I just want to be leading. So the administrators are the foundation. The staff do a lot of the work, and then you need a lot of volunteers. So for example, if the principals say, hey, yeah, it's important to have a plant giveaway for a family night in May and a fall harvest and work parties, they are setting those traditions. And now you've got staff committees who will carry it out and volunteers. So this is just my little evaluation of where the district is so far. So 0, not yet happening. 3, good. It's pretty much sustainable or on its way to sustainability. Admin support. It's beginning. So Jeff has had an open door to talk about this, to figure this out, but it hasn't yet reached all of the administrators. Paid garden coordinator, we're back to not yet. So there's no support in the garden. And that's why we've got to get a volunteer committee. Integration, it's beginning. Everyone knows they're welcome in the garden, but it is not intentionally developing yet. Funding, the district, it's beginning because they provide the water, the porta potty, the Lloyd support is amazing, but it's not a lot of intentional development yet. The community has been doing a lot of the funding of the materials and supplies, a lot of volunteerism. Volunteers, it's back to not yet because for the first couple of years I was full-time, spent a lot of time getting, every time a class would come out, I would get 2 or 3 volunteers because you need that kind of support in the garden. Work parties, research says you need about 6 work parties to sustain a garden. I brought up the PE classes twice a year, so that's over 1,000 students, and they got a lot done. But it took someone to show the PE teachers what to do to lead them through it. So without that happening, now you don't have the PE classes doing that kind of caretaking, and so now we need to go back to the community. Partner organizations, we've got very supportive partner organizations in the community. We need to nurture it. Training of the administrative team, coordinators, staff, volunteers, even the garden team has not yet happened. And the effective school garden team is another thing that's important for successful gardens. That's just its beginning. So I want to talk about a garden team real briefly. The original garden team consisted of the principal, a teacher from elementary, middle school, the PTO president, and community partner reps. Since the kids have come back, the garden team now is the middle school teacher on special assignment, middle school language arts, middle school life science, middle school STEM, middle school heroes, middle school option, and then elementary height. So one recommendation to think about is if you've got this group of teachers who really need to focus on student learning, but you have all these other areas, and we need all constituents, the board, the administrators, the PTO, the community, to hear the same information, to discuss and problem solve and brainstorm, because every time you have more people listening, you've got more ideas. And so some possibilities is having representatives from different constituents, maybe meeting 1 to 4 times a year. Thriving garden programs depend about 1/3 on community support and volunteers. So for example, Steve was doing volunteering in the garden this summer, and he volunteered to finish off the drip irrigation. It's huge. It saves on water. It saves on volunteers needing to water. So we need the volunteers and the community support. So wanted, needed. And we need them to form this committee to help Heidi. Heidi's trying to form it, but she really needs people who can step forward and help take that lead. So look at our community supports. We've got a great start. Local organizations, professional organizations, and there are more groups we can tap into. So the garden looks new. It's evolving. It's going to take time. But now is a time in going from volunteer and teacher, giving a model, to the board, community, asking you, do you value a thriving, sustainable garden and nature program, increasing student health attendance and readiness to learn, reducing food insecurity? Do you value administrative training, staff training? And if so, might this program be funded or continue for us trying to get the donations and go and get the grants? So, and again, that's Heidi and the teachers doing presentations to your groups to try to ask for the funding. So we're really wearing a lot of our staff thin. Also, I am a staff trainer, and so I've offered the past 3 years free training for staff administration. There hasn't been the time of all of the things going on after COVID, but it's getting to the point now where it really, really is important. So, Citizens for Sustainability. Most garden educators I talk to said they don't have time to create anything. They're too busy. So I've created some documents, and I'm not sure on the website, but if you'd like to see a copy of any calendars, garden rules, drip irrigation information, spreadsheets on the ordering of seeds and materials. Also, the safety toolkit is on there. And safety toolkit has checklists for the administrative team, for site safety, harvesting safety, kitchen cafeteria, classroom cooking. And there are forms for recording and keeping tabs on and where are they going to be stored, so that in case there is some foodborne illness, boom, you can go right to the records. So another is the annual calendar by month for the administrators, so they know, it's September. Here's some things we should be thinking about. There's also a calendar created for the garden. What are the things you do in August, September, October, in all those different areas? And because we haven't had staff development yet, trying to create some short videos narrated by Jeff, just to give a little bit of background. Hopefully in the future, the kids will start making the videos and adding to this area.
So here is an example of the power of nature. One of my favorite parts of bringing the kids out to the garden is that it's not just about the garden and doing the gardening. A kindergarten student found this injured butterfly, and the lesson changed as the classmates gathered around. All students got to hold it, study it, ask questions, and grow to love the butterfly. Students who interact with nature develop qualities that are not measurable on a multiple choice test, and they become stewards of this earth, which is, of course, one of our sustainability standards for Washington State. Here's a wonderful quote. If we want children to flourish, to become truly empowered, then let us allow them to love the earth before we ask them to save it. Our Pioneer Garden students are the future leaders that our world needs. Imagine what the world might be like if every student of Pioneer interacts regularly with nature. We hope that the board and community agree with our vision, support this, and consider funding this program. Let's keep growing together. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. It's clear you guys put a lot of work and time and thought into it. I appreciate what you guys are doing out there. I know that it's impactful on our students too. So are there any questions or anything?
I would agree that it's a great presentation. I love all the learning that the students are doing through the garden and all the different areas of learning. So I love seeing that happening out there with nature and connecting.
Awesome.
I asked a quick question.
Are you okay with questions? Yeah.
Yeah, just a little question is, you talked about you had a calendar.
Yes.
So, what the,
Correct.
in order to better
Correct.
success.
Answer did not realize my memory.
So, September,
Yes.
and they lay out the calendar and things that we should be doing that maybe we're not staffed to first do. Is there some sort of urgency?
Yes, actually, I asked my administrator for approval and talked to the board to have a cleanup party out in the garden. I don't know if this is weekend, but I sent one of the dates saying mid-October, October 19th, we would like to have a community-wide cleanup party out in the garden, because there's a lot of things that I cannot safely do by myself, trying to manage all the moving pieces of 27 fifth graders with tools in the garden. So absolutely, getting it ready for the winter is one of those things that we're gonna need to do. And getting chips, we need a donation of wood chips so that we can, arbor chips, sorry, correct terminology, arbor chips, so that we can prepare the beds for the winter.
And then who is there somebody currently working on that? Because I think I saw that we just don't have the funding for a para. I think it's right, if I read that right.
Correct, we no longer have the garden para, and there are other factors that are involved in that other than just funding. So we did meet together as a board, not a board, wrong terminology, sorry, as a committee yesterday, and we are in the process of submitting a document to Dan Deacon, our TOSA, to bring to a community group to ask for donations. The deadline for that is October 1st, and he is going to present it October, I believe, 8th. But that is a drop in the bucket for everything that we need to be what.
Bringing this in addition to your day job.
That's right.
That is, yeah,
And it's because I'm transitioning, so these are all the things I was doing for the first time in years. And the pair was sharing some of this with Heidi. Now, in addition, the garden's only one of the things she teaches. So the goal is to switch this now from volunteer and teacher and to having the administration help with some of the foundations. So for example, Heidi's having to go and ask, can we have these work parties? If the principals and administrators said, we're going to build this into our tradition, we're going to have these 4 work parties where the students will do a couple of these. Then that's off of Heidi. She and her committee can help organize that, but it says, Heidi doesn't have to start figuring out how she's going to ask to get this and arrange it. The same thing with the plan, we have a date to the heart. If that is decided by the administration, then she knows, okay, this is the date. Now I know what seeds to order and I know what to have the kids do. So it's just taking some of the burden off of the teacher and spreading it out among some of the students.
And I would like to add to that, sorry, I should be at the mic, my loud voice. I would like to add to that, that knowing those things in advance really allow me to do more in the other aspects of STEM also. It's important to remember that the garden is not the only part of STEM at the elementary level. So that if I know, okay, this week I'm going to have arbor chips, I can plan, okay, this is our week that we're not going to do something that requires 3 weeks to do, right? If we have things down concrete and I know what's happening, it allows me to better plan ahead for the rest of STEM also.
The community and volunteers is about a third of the success of the garden. Administrators, teachers they're juggling with so many things. So I think what we're asking is, can we have some community help to put our minds together because there aren't enough in PTO. There's not enough in each of the clubs, but if we get a few here and there, you could have a strong community support volunteer group. But if we can help to organize that and then come to the administrators, Heidi, the board and say, this is what we're putting together, what do you think? Because they're garden, they can direct us, we can figure out brainstorm some ideas, but ultimately it's school's garden, if that's the direction that you would like to take. But if anyone wants to help with organizing that piece and bringing the community together, it would be a huge difference on Heidi.
And I'd like to step in really quickly and say that when I went with concerns to Amy last week, she did say, hey, go ahead and let's set this up. And I am going to reach out to the different community groups to help. So I want to make sure that you all know that Amy did say that to me and was awesome. Yes.
I was curious about the arbor chips that you need. Is it specific wood for the arbor chips or? Because I often see that our local tree services are trying to get rid of wood chips and things like that after doing large jobs, maybe.
If you know sources, the PUD always provided them before. So when they cut the limbs off, arborists to have them living needles, everything. That feeds your soil microbes. That's what we call it on the garden and things, mulch and other things. Wood chips doesn't have that. So the PUD stopped doing that, except they did it as a favor to Lloyd because people started to complain that there might be some chemicals if they were doing a telephone pole or something. And they said, no, unless they're going on the school, those arbor strips are where they're clean. But as a safety precaution, they have reduced giving it to the public. And local companies, landscapers, their supply of arborist chips are being reduced because now everyone is finding out how good it is for the soil and for a mulch. And so it's harder to source, but if you can't source them free, if you know supply, fantastic. Otherwise, hopefully there's still some funds left to purchase them, but the pathways haven't been chipped in over a year. And so it's getting unwieldy now with weeds and maintenance, as we probably know from our home. So we need to be able to help out the teachers so they can focus on learning and not on trying to figure out all of these different tasks in the garden. And that's what we need to have help.
Again, if we don't have an administrator or somebody to call and source chips and take that phone call when they're ready to be delivered, then how do we, I mean, if that's really difficult. It's really a difficult pitch point.
Right, and that was last year, that was one of Melissa's duties, was when there were chips to be delivered. She was the one that got the radio call so-and-so is here, can you open the gate, can you come in, can you let them in? And so you're right, we don't have that this year. And honestly, I haven't thought that far yet. How are we gonna do that?
I was the one who would get the key, let people in, and then my husband and I have a dump trailer, so we brought in all of the soil and compost. I check out a key, and then do the gates and close them. Last year, the ability for me to check out a key had stopped, so luckily Melissa and Carol was able to do all of that, but it's also kind of the logistics, and if we have a volunteer group that help figure out those logistics rather than the teachers having to figure this out. Eventually, we're going to burn out some of the best teachers in the elementary levels.
Great questions. And maybe we can find a volunteer that, once we do get some volunteers together that can help take those calls. I don't know what that process looks like, but it sounds like that's definitely a key point in it. So I'm glad that you brought that up because I would not have known that. So thank you.
And then I can send a little summary of some things, especially the adding to the policy of wellness piece, because that's required for the Farm School grant, and just summarizing some of these key issues if you would like that.
Yeah, I would say provide any data that you do have. And that way we have that available to us also. So it's never gonna hurt to send it over. So
I'll send it to you.
to Jeff. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, up next we have the principal reports, starting with Amy at the elementary.
So we decided we wanted to do this together because we just created this awesome team between elementary and middle school this year. I'll let you talk about it.
Okay.
For the elementary, it has been a great start. It's been I wouldn't say rough start. It's been an exciting start, a lot of changes, a lot of student needs, a lot of systems to create, systems to put in place. But I have to tell you, I couldn't have done it with every single staff member that I have there. Every single staff member, I mean, from my custodian to bus driver to teacher to para to admin staff. If I could name every 65 staff member, every single one of them have come to me at one point and said, what can I take off your plate? And I said, this. So I have got leaders throughout the whole building. We've got systems in place. We have things feeling great when I can sit there. And I told Izzy today, I'm like, I just got through 20 emails sitting in my office. She goes, I know, don't say anything. So when I can sit there and do that and not have a call, and I'm going out to classrooms and teachers are still smiling and we're excited and we're getting ready for things, and it lets me know that we're going to be on to the hard work, which is getting our students to read, which is getting all that para staff there to support our students need to read. We're not going to pass states testing if our students can't read. And so I've got a great team of achievement specialists that have got, great schedules in place and paras in place to do one-on-one groups and small groups. It's exciting because it's going to be hard work, but we're going to work on it. I've got my 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade teams already talking about, okay, when are we going to start taking smarter balance examples, and then sitting with our kids and looking at them and sitting in our PLC groups and going, okay, what do our kids need to do to be able to do this and get excited for it? Starting to talk more about PBIS, because that's the biggest thing with culture with kids, PBIS, and do kids feel safe? Are they coming to school feeling happy? That takes care of attendance. If you got attendance going and kids are coming, kids are learning, then they read, then they, test scores are higher. So it's all these little pieces that we're putting into place. I can talk even more. It's been exciting. It's been a lot of hard work, but with all of the hard work and everyone that had come to volunteer their time during the summer, which I appreciate, and put into place for me before we started, it shows. So I just think it's been a great start. And then I'm excited about what the middle schools to share what we've started partnering with.
Yes, exactly. It does feel like day 247 of September. But with that, along with all the things that you could do in those days, we feel like we have accomplished that much already and then some. It was, I know it's been a little bit of a mixed bag of results as far as being on the same time frame, but it's actually really awesome in the fact that we are able to partner together, and we've already seen some very cool things come out of that. One of the things that we just started this week is our TA program. And so we were actually able to send over a multitude of TAs over to our elementary school because we're on the same schedule now. The next point to that we'll go forward with is developing our Big Buddy program again. And that's where we will be getting to have all of our middle school students. And the middle school students love a Big Buddy program. And they will have regular little buddies that they will go over and spend time with. And so we're excited about that opportunity opening up as well. It just did not mesh with the staggered start last year. When our students had availability, there wasn't that time. And so now it just works really well. Amy and I have worked together to really create some common language that we're using with our buildings. And so when you're looking at a lot of the documents and things that we're using, you'll find very similar documents, very similar and common expectations that we're using, just so that we are working to really unify what that looks like for a K-8 district. We may be two separate buildings with different grade bands, but that doesn't mean that our staff can't actually come together as one. And we're so much more effective when we do that. One of the things that we've been working on, Donna Squires is our district testing coordinator. And let me tell you, that woman is amazing, phenomenal. She is amazing. And so she has been helping us with, we do 3 times a year our benchmark testing through our Ames Web section. And so she has been so instrumental in working with Ronna Graham here at the middle school, helping to get us all tested and getting those results for our reading and our writing and our math. As far as that goes, we're using also our iReady curriculum. And so we have all been working on that to get all of that done, because we have a data day coming up where we're going to get some very, just some poignant data to look at, like where our starting place is. Also, teachers are working on, and this is part of the new student growth goals that they're expected to do, but teachers are working on CFAs, which is common formative assessments. And so it applies, one of the things that we recognized, especially at the middle school last year, was that the students didn't have the grit to perform. They didn't have the grit to lead up to that rigor. We had incredibly intelligent students, very smart students, but didn't have the wherewithal to continue to spend time with a test, especially when it was a difficult test. And so one of the things, just like Amy talked about with the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, looking at those interim assessments, that is one of the things that we're really focusing on as well. And we're doing that as a district, is introducing that rigor right up front. So for example, Caroline Davenport, who might be on right now, I'm not sure, but she just, along with the English teams, just gave a CFA that was a performance task that every kid would have taken at the end of the year. And I will tell you, our students struggled. They struggled mightily with this. But I use the example that our PE teachers require, as part of their overall assessment, that the students have a mile time. And they don't wait until the end of the trimester to run the mile. They run the mile within the first week. And it might take them 20, 25 minutes, kids. It might take 20, 25 minutes to run that mile, but they're introduced to the rigor up front. And then they spend all trimester practicing that rigor. They practice that mile. They might do it in small increments, maybe a couple laps one time, but then they might do the whole thing, 2 weeks later, but they continuously go back to that. They have an idea in their mind right from the very beginning of what the expectation is. We were lacking that. We had all along high expectations for high learning for our students, but it's hard to balance the idea of a student who is a 6th grader or a 7th grader who reads at a 2nd grade reading level and introducing them to content that is so far above and watching them struggle. It hurts a teacher's heart. It hurts to watch students struggle the way that they do. But it was imperative for us to move forward in that direction so that every student had access and recognized what benchmark level expectations look like. And we tackled that from the very beginning, and it made it for a long first 3 weeks of school because rigor is difficult. It's not easy, and it's something that we're going to be working on all year long with our students. So I'm excited as we work together, and we're looking at, I'm looking forward to us being able to do some vertical teaming where our teams are able to meet and talk 5th to 6th grade, ELA, what that looks like, math, what that looks like. We're able to talk about our priority or our power standards and what do students really need to learn versus what's just something that's fun to teach. Those are all going to be exciting components as we move through the year, and we look forward ahead. I am excited to work with Amy. She's very open about, you know, the things that are working well. And I'm also wanting to know what can I do better. All of you know, we bounce ideas. And so it's a great partnership, and we're excited about what that's going to do for our buildings as well. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
I just had a couple questions. So the TA thing, is that part of like an elective
It is.
class? Okay,
Yes.
I was like, how do they do it?
Yes, so we have 2 elective periods. We have a 5th and 7th period. So we have kids that ETH in both of those.
And then are they like assigned to a specific grade level or a
Yeah.
specific classroom?
We had certain teachers who said, you know, do you need a TA? Like a front office, I said, woo, Izzy and Amundsen have some help up there. And then certain teachers wanted some TAs in there. So then they're helping sitting with students
Yep.
or doing things for the teacher.
Yep.
And the kids love seeing them every time they come in. They're making connections, which also helps with behavior because we got to be in class if, you know, Titan's coming over. Oh, yay, you know, so it
Yeah.
kind of helps with that behavior towards the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And it's
Yeah.
just kind of exciting to see those middle school students come over because they want to be with their favorite elementary teacher. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of exciting to keep that relationship going as well.
It
That's
is.
really
We
cool.
had our ML teacher who specifically asked for some of the students that she has. We have an ML class that is an English language learners class at the middle school. And so she requested, can I have like these 4 students that would come over and work with some of our kindergartners who don't speak any English whatsoever? And they were so excited to do that,
Like,
to come over, to work in the kindergarten. And I remember one of the students, it told me last week and said, Miss Van Marter, Miss Ashcraft asked if I would come over. I remember when I was a kindergartner and I didn't speak any English either. So I think this will be a really good day. I'm just like, I'm so proud of you. That is amazing to hear things like that.
That's awesome. And I'm sure it's a huge impact for the kindergartner also to be able to have that bridge to kind of help, you know, with all of the learning, right?
Yes.
That would be really overwhelming.
Yeah.
So I imagine that. And then for the elementary school, do you guys, I think when my daughter was in kindergarten, they had like buddy readers and the 5th graders would come into the classroom. Is that a thing? If we're talking about reading needing to be a focus and getting students to read more, have we talked about partnering maybe our 4th and 5th graders with our kinders and 1st graders or something to just get them reading to start with,
Yeah,
right? I
our-
don't
our-
think that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was saying like, you know, obviously kinders are going to have much different reading material, but maybe they're interested in listening to a story that's being read out of a chapter book or whatever, right? However that looks, but just kind of partnering your current students to kind of expand on their reading program.
Yeah, we have the BLT and we have a committee that's like our mentoring committee that we've talked about that. Right now, the 4th and 5th grade is just trying to make sure of a time that they can do it because right now we've got to pass state
Yes,
test
yeah.
scores and they have to be able to read. And so, and then they're just not sure what students, you know, want to go, you know, because that's the other thing too. Other students that want to go, maybe they need extra help. So we're trying to figure out how that works.
Yeah.
And if they, you know, are ready for that yet. But right now with the middle school, it's kind of a great connection because some of those middle school students are going to 5th grade, which is great for them because they're feeling a little more excited now about the big school over here.
Yeah.
It's so scary now that they know somebody.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wanted to make sure. I thought I heard
I
a
thought I
noise.
heard-
So I wanted to make sure I'm not missing. If there's a hand up, I think we're okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
Any other questions or anything?
So I just like to say that the story about the bilingual students who are coming back to help and want to help, it speaks volumes. And it makes me proud of our students.
Yeah.
It makes me proud of our teachers.
Yeah.
Because that growth and that wanting is coming from somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, up next, we've got business operations. Hi.
To talk about these kind of programs and now this, right? Okay. So just, starting, wrapping up end of year. It's gonna be, about a month or so long process. So what you've got today is just preliminary August budget status. It shouldn't change too much. Things will just be, oh golly, I thought it was on. Okay. Did you catch the first part? I don't need to repeat, do I? Okay. So, things will, shift a little bit. There's always some weird things, like liabilities that get stuck somewhere in the system that you have to clean out. But this is pretty close. So, we're going to be, when we're looking at our budget status report, we're going to be very close to our target and balance this year. Can't, give you a final number, but it's not going to be too far off from this right there. And if you want to move along, if you have any questions on this, we looked, we know that we did a budget extension for 23-24 that increased our revenue capacity and our expenditure capacity. So the overall picture is that, we've stayed within our amended extended budget amounts. And I did create a little handout too that you guys have at the back of your budget status report packet that will go over after we go through the status report for the fund. So do you have any questions on the general fund status report right now? Anything? It's like, when you looked at those percentages on the right-hand side for revenues, 98.3% of our capacity for revenue was utilized this year. 95.66% of our expenditure capacity was utilized. So stayed within our budget extension worked. Did its job. Capital projects. So after paying last month's capital project expenditures, we're sitting at about $12,600. I will be making a transfer from general fund to capital this week for to pay our end of month capital expenditures. Debt service fund is stable. That's just, we're going to look at some of the investment information at the end here. So right now I've just been leaving the investments as they are. So I'll probably be liquidating the next month, the debt service investment. So we'll see a change there. ASB end of year, about $48,412. New for 24-25. I think I mentioned that we were, since the elementary ASB is going to be operational now, that they'll have their own accounts, right? Yeah. So those will be, I think this will be looking a little bit different next budget status report. I'm gonna have to see if I need to do any changes to reflect those two separate budgets. Transportation vehicle, we got our, our depreciation there shows up in the revenues, 4,000 state special purpose. So that bumps that account up quite a bit, but we're still within our planned revenue amounts. There were no expenditures this month
Right. And I remember, so if you want to move on to this little handout you guys have, the top is just kind of a summary. You know, we talked with budget status report. It breaks things down, the expenditures and revenues down by programs, like the regular instruction, federal stimulus, special ed. Those are programs. Same with the revenues, local tax, state general purpose, state special purpose, those are programs. So it doesn't give you a lot of information. So this report is just a summary of objects where we're spending our funds. Objects tell a little bit more of the story. So capital outlay. That's not capital projects. We have a threshold, a dollar threshold for items that can be considered capitalized. So it's coded as a capital outlay. Some of those things that come to mind that we spent money on last year were the E-rate dollars that went to elementary, all that new wiring, the Cat 6 wiring, that whole upgrade. That was not a capital project, but it was capitalized expenses for the general fund. So also when we're looking at it, we have to remember that these expenditures, it's budgeted, right? How much was budgeted and then how much was actually spent. So we had a little more revenue from E-rate, so our expenditures were a little more. Salaries, that's pretty self-explanatory. What was budgeted, what was expended, we were a little under. I think it has to do with the personnel, decisions at the end of the year, or at the end of the school year that created that little bit of savings. Classified salaries, same thing, employee benefits and payroll. So these numbers should be pretty close to, these numbers should not change too much, even though they're preliminary. Purchase services. So that can be anything from, having digging to work on the septic, to a speech language pathologist, to our SRO expenditures. So purchase services are, a wide range of services that are just summarized here. We did have, we did go over a little bit on that. Supplies, non-capitalized. Those can be also anything from tech supplies to fuel, postage, classroom supplies, and then travel. We came in under budgeted in our travel this year too. So those are the main object areas of spending. And this is just a real brief overview of what that looked like this last year. Yeah, anybody have any questions on that? And then, so for the investments, I remember when I mentioned investments last month, somebody was interested in maybe learning a little bit more. So this is just a little bit of information on the county investment pool. We send instruction to the county telling them how much of which fund we'd like to have invested, and they do that for us. And then I just pulled 3 years worth of information. 22-23 was the year, of course, with the highest return, but we also had a lot of, we had all that extra money sitting, waiting to be spent. So we had a lot of money that we could invest at that time. And that's all I've got. If nobody has any questions or any requests.
I had a quick question. Earlier you said you were talking about liquidating investments. Is that correct? What does that process look like and how does that impact this?
Sure. So say we've got $60,000 in investments for general fund. So we've, it's literally a form that you fill out and send to the county treasurer with the instructions on how much to invest, on what date, and then same thing for liquidation. It's actually the same form, except it's like how much to liquidate for which fund on what date.
And then that just comes back, so that will just show up as revenue essentially in here?
It does. So it's in it. So let's look at our first page of the budget status report. So, we've got for revenue, we've got taxes, and those are in the 1,000 program, revenue program. The next program is 2,000. And that's where we find our, investment earnings as well. I was just gonna see how close we were. So if we look at, local support non-tax, this general fund, the actual per year. That's, part of that is these investment earnings, $39,000.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Any other questions? Are you open to taking?
sure.
Was this for your presentation about the farm to
Farmer school. Mhm.
grant, whatever that is? Is
The
that
grant.
out there somehow? Was it farm to school garden?
Yeah, I don't
Yep,
think that the
that wouldn't be-
grant
that
would be
wouldn't be
on
on
there
there.
because we don't have it yet. So there's no funding that would be included in the budget sheet.
Just wonder what that grant looked like. and did we ever
Yeah, yeah.
have any- so, never mind.
Thank you. Okay, now we have the superintendent's report.
So you have the board report in front of you, and the big news is transportation, as always. So we have a new driver that we've hired, and an announcement will be going out to our families. I believe we're going to send it out Thursday night. We have new routes that have been worked on. So we will, starting Monday, we will have 8 large bus routes. We will go back to 2 of those being our electric buses, and we will now be able to provide rides for every student who signed up. There's no more waiting list. We can get every student on every bus. A few of the bus routes are packed. They have a capacity of 84 and there's 77 registered. So if every student rides the bus on that route, it becomes pretty crowded. But we know that not every student rides every day. But we're happy that the co-op that we work with in Shelton has been much more active this year in supporting our transportation needs. So we are, however, still recruiting drivers. So if you know anybody that wants to be a bus driver, send them to HR. We'll get them an application, get them signed up and get the training. Again, we pay for the training. So spent an hour today with Senator Wellman. Every Monday and Tuesday, our Rural Education Center, which we're a member of, has a hour-long Zoom meeting. And there's usually between 30 and 40 small school superintendents that participate. Today was Senator Wellman. She's on the Education Committee. And so we just talked about the upcoming legislative session. She does have, someone's running against her. She's out of the Seattle area. But we talked a lot about insurance costs. We talked about the lack of funding in MSOC, which we talked about last spring. We talked about transportation and fully funding transportation, and of course, special ed funding. And those are items that all of us are dealing with. And so it was a good conversation. I don't know if you know Senator Wellman very well, but she is just a huge champion for public education. Has been very, very supportive and very approachable. She's one that if you email her, she will get back to you in a short period of time with some answers. We did have Chef Kent last Thursday, came in to visit and prepare the Boy, it smelled really good in that cafeteria. And it's an exciting time when he comes. So came early this year, which was very nice. I do want to also mention when Amy and Trish were up talking, I'll tell you the biggest difference I see at this point in time in week 4 in each building is much more proactivity than reactivity. I think the ability for the two of them to communicate and to kind of set the tone for their buildings is much different this year than it was a year ago. Even though we are dealing with our budget issues, and I thought we would deal with some morale issues because we lost a lot of employees. But the leadership with these two in their buildings, I have not seen any morale issues. I've seen just the opposite. And Amy mentioned that, is that this summer when she was transitioning into that principal role, virtually every teacher in that building, like she said, what can I do to help? I'll serve on this committee. Let's do this. Have you thought about that? And the ideas didn't come from top down. They came from, I don't want to say bottom, they came from staff up. And virtually every idea was something that's going to benefit the kids and the school, and the same thing in the middle school. So I appreciate their leadership in the building. I think we will move forward and see really good things this year. But I'm just really pleased with their leadership and the things I'm seeing in those buildings. So.
Awesome. You said we have new bus routes that start Monday?
They will be posted on the website Friday. They're finalizing them. We will be down to 2 special ed routes. And then we took 1 special ed route driver and put them on a big bus. And then we hired a new driver who just passed their test Saturday and completed their training tomorrow. And they'll get their CDL licensure tomorrow, and they'll be driving on Monday.
Nice.
So announcement will go out, robocall will go out on Parent Square. We will post all the routes on the website by Friday. Delphi's just finishing some of those up. We did bidding today with the drivers, because anytime you change or add routes, they get a chance to go back in, because it does change some of their hours. Their base hours. So we did the bidding this morning after their routes, and we're ready to go. We still don't have substitute drivers. So I will say that the co-op again has been very supportive this year, where we actually, like today, we have Route 1, which had a substitute. The substitute was gone yesterday, today, and tomorrow. The co-op provided a substitute driver in the morning. And then Aaron Edgington, our cook, drives that bus in the afternoon for us.
Wow. So
again, the co-op has been much more proactive in helping us. We have, some Singleton transportation issues. Again, they will help us meet those needs. So I'm pleased this year with the cooperation from the cooperative, which you would think with a cooperative, there would automatically be cooperation, but it's much better this year. So.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear we're getting everybody covered. And
there.
we have people who are doing multiple jobs too to help cover. That's amazing.
Yes. Yeah, we do.
Any questions or anything? Okay. Up next, we're on to the discussion and action items. We have 2 action items this evening. The first is the first reading of policy 5011 for the sex discrimination and sex-based harassment of district staff being prohibited. Do we have any discussion? Can you point out if there were any major changes? I know this was one that just needed to be revamped or reviewed rather, sorry.
Reviewed and updated. I think 22 was the last date on it.
Yes.
Yeah, 22. So a lot of times when laws change, especially around civil rights, that we will see some language changes. Or if there's court cases, we will see language changes in policy. So this would be an example. No major changes really on what the old policy had.
Okay.
And then we will be creating the procedure that goes with that in the coming months.
And does the procedure come out like before or after the second reading?
The procedure does not have to be approved by the board. It's just how the district will be implementing the policy.
Got it. Okay.
So this is the policy, and then the district provides the procedures. We share that obviously, but it does not have to be voted on. Procedures don't have to be voted on.
Gotcha. Do we have any questions or discussion? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the first reading of policy 5011 for the sex discrimination and sex-based harassment of district staff? Prohibited.
I'll move to accept the first reading of policy 5011, section 5000 on sexual discrimination and sex-based harassment on district staff.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. The last action item that we have for this evening is approval of the Pioneer School District's Transitional Bilingual Instructional Program grant.
Yeah, every year we have to take this grant for approval to the board like we do some of our other grants. And it's reflected in the minutes that we will be submitting to OSPI with this grant. So this is an annual TBIP grant that we apply for and use the funds in our ELL program.
Excellent. Do we have any questions or discussion pertaining to that item?
Are there any costs to the district with this grant?
There's no, it's a source of revenue, but like most grants that we get, it does not nearly cover the cost of the program, but it does contribute to the revenue part of the program.
Good question. Any others? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the Pioneer School District's CBIP grant?
I'll motion to approve the TBIP grant.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed? Okay, and that motion passes as well. Up next, we are on to board share. Do we have any board share items?
I'll just, I went to I attended virtually the WASDA General Assembly where there are proposals put in by districts all over the state.
Mhm.
There was 49 proposals. You know, a lot of them that passed for, needing more funding. So it's, good. I think all districts are feeling the need and lack of funding from the state right now. So they'll hopefully be advocating really well for our school districts on that.
Nice.
There's a lot of districts involved in it, participation, and we finished it all in one day though, with 49 proposals.
Wow.
We got to do it all in one day.
That never happens.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
We had last year,
I was like,
Poor
"Oh,
Robert."
2 days of this, but yeah, really, really well. Hopefully there will be some good funding.
It's an interesting process, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that too and hanging in there for a whole day.
Good, interesting,
Yeah,
fun to take part in.
awesome. Sweet. Any other board share?
I'm appreciative of you taking that on.
We all do.
Yes, yes. All right. With nothing left to share, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.